From the underground to the world stage. One stage, countless voices. The conversation that shapes culture, politics, entertainment, and society. Politicians, comedians, musicians, actors, public servants, leaders. Unfiltered, unscripted, unmissable. This is Debated Live.
Welcome to this week's episode of Debated Live. Joining Jordan Kensington on this week's show, we have founder of one of the biggest jewelry brands in the world, Pandora. Jesper Nielsen will be on the show with Jordan Kensington, and they'll be talking about how he co-founded the brand, how the brand expanded into Europe, and how he sold his stake in the brand and all the challenges he went through. And obviously advice to a lot of entrepreneurs out there, especially those who are planning to sell and exit their businesses. It's a show that you better listen to. Get your pads, take notes. Let's go. And don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, join, and tell a friend to tell a friend. Sharing is caring. It's a debated show.
I'm the co-founder of Pandora, the man who turned Pandora into a multi-billion-dollar global empire. Then lost everything in brutal tax battles, corporate betrayals, and endless court cases and public humiliations. The pain was unbearable. Endless sleepless nights, doubts, feeling like the whole world was against me. I know what it's like to hit absolute rock bottom when you thought you were at the top. But I fought back over years and I won all my battles. I learned how to take that pain into...
On the stage today, Jesper. Welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you very much. Thank you very much for the invitation, John. It's a pleasure.
No, good to have you on the show. Good to have you. So, Jesper, what we're going to do, we're going to go all the way from the very start. I always think it's always good to go to when people were growing up, what they always wanted to be when they grew up. When I was growing up, when my mom or my dad asked me what I wanted to be, I always said doctor. Because when I said doctor, then everybody got excited. And of course, I didn't want to be a doctor. I wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I just went for the thing that got everyone excited. But deep inside of you, when you were growing up, take yourself back to when you were like 5 years, 6 years old. What was your burning ambition? Or, you know, when you were 14, 15, what did you actually want to be when you were young?
Yeah, because none of us at that age knows what it means to be an entrepreneur, of course. So you're right. My big dream was not far away from yours. It was because my dream was to be able to drive trains, you know, so that's how simple it was. I was always very fascinated watching the big trains driving by where I lived, and I wanted to drive one of them one day. It never happened. Now my son is a pilot, so we got a little bit closer in the family. But anyway, that was my big dream back in the old days.
Amazing. And now going the way now back to when you graduated from college and everything else, what was your start to your entry into the world of, let's say, you know, job or business? What was your entry into that world?
In Denmark, it is like this, that we actually, besides our school, always have like a spare time job somewhere, you know, so we and from my personal point of view, I was working in a gas station in my hometown in the evening, you know, taking a shift 2 times a week, so you can fit it into your sports and your school and all these kind of things. And from there on, I actually really didn't move on because I got really intrigued by that kind of business. So after I graduated my high school, I went into an internship in that place, and then actually very few years later, I showed my talent in that I got my own gas station as a very young guy. 22 years old, I was already running gas station in Denmark. And from there on, I got a feeling about what it meant to make money. I liked that. And then I just stayed in that kind of business, you know, to make my own money for my future. So when I got the hang of something that I really like, meaning in that case retail, and understood about business and how to make money, how 1 and 1 sometimes can be 5 or 10, then I really got into making my own businesses. And from there on, you know, it was all about entrepreneurship, more or less.
That's amazing. You mentioned retail. Back in the day, retail was king. I mean, I started in business in 1998. And in those days, online wasn't king. Like people were just kind of, in fact, people were actually skeptical about people. If you said you had a business online, they'll be like, What's that about? You know, we got to make it had to be bricks and mortar. So that retail industry was a lot of face-to-face meetings, none of this Zoom stuff. You had to really have a presence on the high street, and you know, you had to really market yourself to get consumers walking in the door, and really make sure you kind of keep them customers or long term. In those early stages of your career, how did you figure it all out? Because most of this stuff, especially entrepreneurship, wasn't taught at school. You know, at uni, you were not taught how to actually run businesses in real time. So how did you figure all that out?
You got a very good point there, John, because I basically think that all business comes out of retail, because at the end of the day, the sales is the key to everything that happens when it comes to any kind of business. No business exists without the sales. And the last, you can say, point to the sales, it will always be the retail at that age. At that days, it was for sure. So of course, for me, it was very learnful to stand on this gas station and sell these different kind of products that we had at that time. We were not so much into convenience as they are nowadays, but we were into, you know, having sales, different kind of suites, you know, having service for the cars, fueling the cars, all these kind of things. But what I learned from that was maybe the most important lesson I learned in my life, is that the relationship between the customer and you are the most important thing. You have to create some kind of trust, some kind of good atmosphere, some kind of good energy. And I made it into, you can say, some kind of reality show running these gas stations, because I was joking, having fun. I have a strong memory. I learned their names, what they're gonna buy. I remember their kids. I remember the dogs. So I was standing there running a whole, you can say, reality stand-up show for 8-9 hours. And the customers, of course, they just loved coming to a place where they were recognized, which I later on learned is extremely important in all kind of businesses. So that basically led to the basic point of what I understood has to be done in order to create the room for the sales, the trust. The people wants to be with you. You have to be likable and all these things. So I learned something very important. And then the basic business itself, you know, debit, credit, selling, inventory, and all these things, you also learn in the retail, running retail stores. So basically, I felt that I took a very, very strong education to understand what is a business. Of course, it was a limited business. At my top, I was running 3 gas stations as a very young guy, 50 employees. Making about 7-8 million euro, but you know, and I make good money. You know, I bought my first Porsche with 25. I lived in the first line to the sea with 26. You know, because I found out if I work from 6 o'clock in the morning to 11 in the evening in that kind of business, you know, you save a lot of salary costs. And if you do a lot of things yourself, you know, the profit increase for yourself. And if I could increase the sale with 10, 15, 20% and keep the cost, you know, I learned all the basics on how to make a business really, really, you know, successful and profitable in a very secure space, because the business was not something I had to create from A to Z. We all need the fuel, we all needed the different things, but I just tried to put some different things into an events at the Saturday for the kids, you know, making a carnival, all these kind of things that I really tested out on, that I later on, when I start to run huge global billion-dollar businesses, I use the same methods towards my customer, towards my employees. So I basically learned all in that little secure space as a young entrepreneur, how this all works. And of course, at that time, I had the scaling mindset, because nobody else wanted to run 3 gas stations. 1 would normally be enough. It's a franchise system. So of course, why you want to run 3 at the same time? And I said, because I can also run 10, you know. And that's just what, you know, drove me in my very early days into the global entrepreneur I later became. You know, I learned it the basic hard way, on spot, making the mistakes, paying for them, get up again, do it again, and of course, I was a young man. I was motivated. I wanted a Porsche, you know, with 25. I had all these motivation things that a young man has. That is for a young entrepreneurial man a very important driver. That he has all these dreams, you know, the car, the house, the boat, the plane, the football club, you know, all these things you dream about. And I went through all these stages, of course, because I always, and I still have, hunger for more. And that is, of course, in my special entrepreneurial skill is that I'm extremely focused on scales, and I'm never satisfied with what I have. I always, when I won the championship with my sports teams, I was celebrating for 1.5 minutes, looking forward to the next championship, because now we have to win a new one. I don't know where I got that from, but that is something that I grew over time. These different kind of things, but it was already there with 2021, 22. I was already having that mindset of wanting more, running
I love
fast,
that.
and working like crazy.
I love that. I love that. You mentioned something that I completely agree with, which is you need to make the customer feel like family. I always say people buy from people. When you mentioned about, it was like a reality TV show, you made people feel good. I think that's something that's very missing, especially in this social media era, where everything is very much digital based. People don't understand how to make the customer feel like the hero, because sometimes you're not actually buying the product. You're actually buying how the product makes you feel, or how the experience makes you feel. And I think it's so important for entrepreneurs to understand that, because a lot of entrepreneurs have this notion that I am sorting out a problem that exists. And the thing is, you can sort out loads of problems that exist. I mean, people still feel crap. They're still going to feel crap. Even while you're fixing the plumbing, someone can still feel crap about how much you're charging them. So they just have to feel. I mean, people don't feel crap if you're making them feel good and you're asking them to pay more money for it. I mean, if a restaurant makes you feel like a king, and at the end of the day, you want to tip as much as possible, you want to spend as much as possible, you're like, take my money, because they made you feel good. And I think that's something that's very missing in today's entrepreneurial society. Did you get that from your parents? Because that's something that, again, that's not taught at school.
Yeah.
Where did you get that from?
That of course I got from home, because my home was a very open home to everybody. We were very friendly to everybody around the world. In my little local society I lived in, my father was the chairman of the local sports club. We were like a very, very kind and giving family, and I just scaled that later on to put it into the business model, to be very kind and to be very, open and kind and likable and all these things. So I actually moved on, and I constructed a concept in my business, especially in Pandora, where I just didn't focus on the customer, but I tried to build it the whole way through every single, stage of people related to your business. I even, I started with my suppliers. I nursed them upside down. I took them to football games. I traveled them. I informed them about how the business was going, so they feel related to my business, all the suppliers in the early days of Pandora. And later on, of course, we all know that we have to treat our employees like it's fantastic. And I had done so many crazy things for my employees over the years, and took the whole family and flew them to Sardinia and have 3 fantastic days after a fantastic result of the year, just give them everything they want, massage at the spot, food, drinks every day, breakfast in the morning when they came, like a 4-star hotel, drinks every day, Red Bulls, and everything all the time, just making them feel comfortable and valued, treat them like they were my family all the time. And that, of course, we let out to every single stage, suppliers, employees, people around you, the authorities, everybody around you, treat them kind, treat them nice. And then, of course, also at the end, it ends up to that all these people together will, of course, fight to give your most important persons, the customers, the ultimate experience of having a company full of good energy. And when you then combine them with a magic product like Pandora, then of course completely crazy things happens, like the Pandora story, where I always say they did like this, everything, me here, the product here, all of us here, and suddenly just make like this, woof, and then it went off like never seen before in the industry, and that was, of course, when you get that feeling. I got that like 5-6 years into the journey with Pandora, where everything was just going smooth. The suppliers, the employees, the sales teams, the customers, the franchise partners, they were all treated like kings from our side. I know it costs a little bit on your profit margins. That is what it is. But most of all, it is the effort that you put into it that is the biggest thing. That you actually think about it, that you care about it. Very often it doesn't have to cost very much. It's just showing that you care about your franchisee, that you care about your employee, that you care about your supplier, that you care about your customers and all these things. And that was actually where we made the magic happen, because we didn't invent the Pandora bracelet. It was another company called Troll Beats from Denmark, but they didn't have a Jesper. So they just run the business the normal way, going home at 4 o'clock, not doing the evening shows at all the hotels all around Germany, and all these things that started creating the Pandora brand from the very beginning and the birth of the brand, so to speak. And that was all these small things. Very often people ask me, because I'm one of the few guys that had created a top 100 global brand that is still alive. Many people, they ask me, how did you do it? And I said, how long time do you have? Because it's not one thing. It's 100 different things at the same time, but it's a mindset. You can never do enough for anybody in your business or your suppliers. You can never be good enough. You can always continue and do it better. And that hunger led to, at the end, that all the synergies, they fit together with the Pandora business. And you started experiencing it in the UK and around the world, like in 8, 9, 10. But we've already been running and creating the wonder in Germany from 2002 and onwards. And then we just scaled. And now, of course, everybody in the whole world knows about Pandora.
You mentioned Pandora there, which we're about to get to. Pandora obviously launched years ago. There was a history behind that. Tell us how you became part of Pandora, because it wasn't the actual global historical launch. No. It was a specific, was it the European side of the market? Was it a franchisee, or did you first work for them and then, as Nielsen, and then obviously, you ended up getting shares? How did it all work? Like, how did you get involved with that company? Because it existed before.
Actually, I met Mr. Enevoldsen, the founder of Pandora, in 2002, 2003, where we were a company selling for about 500,000 euro. I met him coincidentally at a jewelry show in Denmark, and I was not planning to do any, specific things, but I really liked it, and I liked the story behind the product. And I said to them if they had anyone representing them in Germany. And he said no, because we don't speak any German, and we're not a very big company. There were like 3-4 people working in the company at that time. It had another name as well. It wasn't called Pandora. And I said, but maybe I could go to Germany. And
so wait, it wasn't called Pandora. It wasn't called Pandora.
Popular AS, we call it at that time, because Pandora was one of the 4 collections that they had in their little wholesale company that they were running. They bought basically, wholesale products from Thailand and sold them to Danish jewelry stores at that time. It was a very tiny little company, little office. Everything was, like millions of other companies around the world. And then I met these guys, and I liked the product. This Mr. Enevoldsen, and he had a sales guy for that part of Denmark called Mr. Ramstrup. And I met them, and I said, maybe I buy 10 starter kits from Pandora. I will try to take my car, drive to Germany to see if we can sell it also in Germany, because if we could sell it in Germany, I think it could be a much bigger business than just in little Denmark. That is only 5 million people. We have 82 million people in Germany. And I took 2 weeks off from my normal business, and I went and I drove down to the Hamburg area, and I drove around, and I sold 3 out of the 10 packages in these 2 weeks. But basically that made me hungry enough to say, I'll do it. I will take the license for Germany. I will be the distributor. I started as a distributor within Germany. And then I started, slowly going around Germany, selling in these products to the jewelry store in a wholesale way of doing it, slowly winning more. And then, of course, I found out that they had a whole system of independent sales reps driving around doing the same as me all around Germany. So I then stopped from trying to sell myself to try to find sales reps for every area of Germany. And then from there on, I started growing the business. And of course, we had a problem that we had to scale our production at the same time as we were running. The name Pandora was already there, but it was later on that we changed the whole company's name to Pandora because we got so much success with this collection. So we continued, and from there on, we started to build and run. And then over these years, I was maybe like 80 to 90% of the business of Pandora was through Germany and me. And of course, as we then emerged and got more and more successful, of course, we talked about making some kind of, joint venture cooperation between my company and them. But in the beginning, I was not very interested in that because I liked my business. I like to be independent. But we became really successful. At that time in 7 or 8 in Germany, I was maybe turning over like maybe 100 million euro, 120 million euro. And of course, we got to be interesting for the big Danish ventures, for the big Danish equities. So in April 2008, Mr. Enevoldsen decided to sell the company to a private equity. And of course, they asked if I was interested in joining that, corporation. I said, no, I'm doing fine in Germany. I have my own family company and we sell a lot of Pandora. I'm really happy. We are profitable. We make a lot of money. I had my football club. I had all these kind of things. So I was actually quite well about everything. So I said no, but later on, of course, I could see during 8 and 9 as we moved on that it would make sense for me also to join the big Pandora and be one of the co-founders of Pandora. So what we did during 9, I negotiated with the equity, and at the end of 2009, we published that I also now, as the big distributor, the big also joined Pandora. And that was because we started to getting the idea that maybe we would IPO the company in the coming years. So what we did is that we actually joined forces, so to speak, and made ourselves really, really strong and ready to move forward. The moving out in the world came really like from 7, 8. We opened up the first Pandora store in America in 2008, late 2008. We already had like 35 of them in Germany at that time that I opened up from 2005, 6 up till 2008. But then we started from 2008 after we got in the money from the private equity. We started to really expand out in the world. We increased our production. We got access to a lot of cash. It was not just Mr. Enevoldsen and Mr. Nielsen's small family who was running this business, but we got access to the biggest, you can say, equity of Denmark. And that was, of course, very important for us at that time. And that would also have been the time where you in the UK and around the world would start to notice us. Because then we started to open up the stores in UK, for instance, UK in 9, 10, 11. Whereas, of course, Germany was at that time running hundreds of stores at that time. But then it started, and then we started to spread all around the world. And especially when we succeeded in the Americas, during 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, it just explodes over there. They are maniacs, they are buying like crazy. And the jewelry market over there is sensational. I think we do $1.5 billion in America now in 2025, but it grew very fast. And of course, it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And additionally to that, then I took most of Europe under my wings, and I was running the most of the European Pandora business, not UK, but the rest of Europe. I was running more or less. And that has, of course, also meant that my company was growing like crazy. And that actually made me the co-founder of Pandora when we joined forces and I became a part of the bigger Pandora. But for many, many years, I was just, an independent distributor. And then I became a part of the big Pandora when we joined forces, because I had the biggest distribution company in the world. So it would make sense, of course, for me also to join Pandora. At that time, Mr. Enevoldsen has already left the company. So I was the last, real founder guy who was left in the company. And I stayed a couple of years as CEO until I retired in 11. After we IPO'd the business in October 2010. It was enormous. The IPO was 3.5 billion. And it was the biggest listing in my country for 40 years. And there hasn't been one like that since. So, of course, it was a big achievement for all of us doing that. And, of course, due to Mr. Enevoldsen was living in Bangkok and was doing the production, and I was living in Denmark, of course, I got the full exposure of all that business in Denmark. So that's why that for the Danish people, they see me as the guy who made Pandora, because I was the guy to the front, and representing Pandora, because Mr. Enevoldsen is a very shy guy. I don't mind stepping forward and doing things. And that was the story, how it all evolved. And then I retired in 2011, I think, mid-11, as a CEO of the European entity, and left the global board. And then you can say that now I just follow them as a part of it's my babies, as I always say.
That's such an amazing story. So you guys, you IPO'd the business in 2010 for 3.5 billion. At that stage, or so when you say your company joined with them, it was a joint venture. At that stage, how much shares in terms of ownership did you have, and what were you expecting from the IPO? So obviously you IPO 3.5. You were part of the business. What percentage of the business did you own? And did you actually want to relinquish your shares in the business? Of course, you retired in 2011. Was it a forced retirement, or did you actually, think, it was time to move on and just take your money? And obviously taking your money, you're going to have a competitive clause. You can't actually go back into that business. Was it all what you wanted to do, or were you kind of forced out?
At the IPO, my share value was valued about 370 million euros. So that, I was like maybe 10% of it was at the end mine. We sold 60% in 2008 to the private equity. And then later on, we got diluted, of course, through the IPO as well. But at the end, I stood with a check of around 370 million euro. And I was, we needed to fuel the money into the business at that time as well. So I accepted a deal where I got like 50 to 70 million cash. And then I would have the rest payment, like the rest of us, we were locked up. And I would get the rest payment in 2015. That is how the financials ran around my deal that I made at that time when we exited the business. And actually, I made a contract for 10 years in 2010 for being the CEO of the European entity and a member of the 4-man global board to stay into the business, because I was the last, founder in the business. So it was important when we went out to sell the company to the investors that we stated that it's still standing on solid ground. Jesper is still a part of the business. He will continue because he was the man who constructed the system. He was the man who constructed the Pandora stores. He was the one who made it into retail. He was the mind behind the whole branding behind Pandora. So he's still stepping in. The other founder, he is leaving because he was also significantly older than me, like 20 years older than me. So that makes sense that he slowly get out of the business. He already left around 9. He said I had enough, and he had, and he left the business. He was not interested in like me going on this, roller coaster ride, creating this global brand. But what then happened, of course, when we got the new ownership, from the equity, it's not easy for a founder but as soon as in the first couple of years, I could keep it in hand because I still was running my own entity of Pandora. But of course, when I really joined forces with them, I got into struggles as an entrepreneur because the mindset of these guys compared to me, I was much different. I was all about people, all about we didn't need to take the last 3% profit margin if we could make our customers and our employees and our suppliers happy. Don't push it, I said all the time. But of course, they came with a whole other mindset. They want to squeeze every single euro out of the business that they could to the investors and the shareholders, because that was what they were measured at. And of course, the financial situation of me and the other people left in Pandora was, of course, much different because, I was flying my own private jet. I was running the biggest football club in the country. I was having 10 different cars, big house in Mallorca, and they were getting a salary every month that, of course, not in any way and they were looking at me coming to the meetings in my Learjet, and that made it all very awkward and a bad atmosphere. And I just came to the conclusion after we IPO'd and everything went fine, that maybe it would be time that I lead the business to the new ownership.
Is no one going to say anything?
No. Get Solara Republic from only 1,500 Rand a month. No extras. No load shedding. Solara Republic.
And we were talking in part 1 about the IPO of the company, 2010, 3.5 billion, 2011. Jesper decides to, retire from Pandora Jewelry. So how was that like? I mean, working in Pandora and really building that company and being the face of that brand for a long period of time. And now, kind of retiring that brand to people. It's like kind of giving your baby away. So how was that like for you? Was that an easy decision, a transition for you?
It is a very hard decision to do, but you just have to admit that a certain point where you, as an entrepreneur, work in a company of that size and you don't have the majority any longer, it is a different way of doing it. I think if we have been able to, in the old founder circle, to have kept the majority, I'm quite sure that I would have stayed in and would still be working in Pandora. But there's just so many things that happens in the transaction from, this entrepreneurial driven company with strong characters into you can say corporate global company that has a completely other agenda. And I love to see my baby grow, but I also felt that the time was right now for me to move on and go into other projects. It's something that I'm of course extremely proud of. It is my legacy. It is the most important time of my business life. But I was already involved in other projects at that time. I got involved in different sports teams and things like that. So I took my full energy and put into my sports teams instead. And it's another kind of business. It's also extremely fun. I could talk for hours about what it's like to run sports teams. But it's much different from Pandora. But the Pandora that I left was not the Pandora that was there the years that I was there. So I was actually ready, to leave. I tried to stay in the board for a couple of times, for a couple of months and years, but it didn't work for me because I could feel that the things that we now need to do to increase our profit margins, to increase the investment for our investors and shareholders, didn't really match up with how I wanted to do things. I wouldn't go back to the customers that created me over the years, my franchise partners, my employees, my sales reps, and had to do the things that were asked now from the you can say from the new board to increase the profit margins, to cut costs, all these things. That was not the way I was doing the company. I didn't mind, running with a 5% lower EBITDA if it meant that everybody in my value chain was really happy about being there, because I truly believe in the long run that is a better investment as a businessman, to go for the long run and make them stay a long time and make franchise partners smile, instead of trying to soak them for having to pay for their advertising material, and to create a business model where you make money on a short term. And that was what intrigued me a lot about the business model from the IPO listed company, that we're always running for the next quarter. And that makes it not very healthy in the environment that I want to create a company, because I look at 10 years ahead, and now we're looking into what is the next quarter results. And of course, there we can cut fast, do this, and then we can save a lot of money and increase the profit. But is it really good for the company in the long run? I'm not sure that is always the solution. So I couldn't face myself in that, environment that was done there. People telling me, yes, but that is exactly the opposite of what you've been telling us all the time that you're asking us to do now. And at the end, I saw no other opportunity than if I have to keep my integrity as a businessman towards these people, I had to resign slowly and without any drama.
And how much in cash were you managed to get from that deal?
50 million on the book, yeah. Then I needed to get my last payment in 2015. That would be around another 270 million, 280 million that I would then. But I just sat back, relaxed on my 30-meter yacht in Mallorca, running my sports teams, and didn't take a breath, because running sports teams is as hard business as it is running a jewelry company. But I just sat there, and I was still, the major shareholder of the biggest jewelry company in Europe, the Pandora entity in Europe. So I was actually quite happy with the situation when I left the company in 2011, and it was quite a good situation for me at that time. I was happy.
So when did you feel like you were screwed over? Was it when you were trying to get the remainder of what was due to you? Is that when you felt like
No.
this will not happen?
Actually, you can say about my story that the first, 12, 13 years of my Pandora journey was, the American dream coming through for a young guy, uneducated, but, with a mindset and a willing to work like never seen before. But the real lesson and the real power that I found in my life came after I left Pandora, because the first year was quite easy, but then I got really screwed over by the tax authorities of my country like crazy. It's like you see in a movie, they come overnight without any prior warning, and they simply possess every single asset I have. They take my houses, my cars, my shares, my boat, my plane, my cash. They close my sports team.
Or people who are selling their companies now, so people who have sold their. I mean, I sold a company in 2003 for 30 million, and I didn't know about the taxes you had to pay on that. I thought, well, this is all profit. So a lot of people. Especially entrepreneurs, again, this is not stuff you're taught at school. When you're negotiating, you're not negotiating and bearing in mind how much tax you're going to have to pay for that. It's something that you're not told during a negotiation, so you think this is net. So can you explain how that happened and why the tax authorities got involved.
It is like this, that in Denmark is a very taxed country. It's not a secret. We have a very high income tax. We have a high tax of everything. But with my background coming out of a working class family, my father was an electrician, my mom worked in a kindergarten, we always paid our tax without any hesitation. It's a part of being a part of a very well-functioning society, like the Danish society actually is. So we decided in the early stages of our company, even though we didn't run our business in Denmark, we decided to stay in Denmark and run our company out of Denmark, even though we were not operating in Denmark ourselves. So of course that is a solution we make because we are Danish. We are a family coming from the outskirts of Copenhagen, and we had no intention of moving our whole family, all our kids, out of it was our environment. So we decided to build the company out of there. And of course, we also had to be taxed in Denmark then, of course. But it's okay. The company tax in Denmark is 22%. That is acceptable. We always paid our tax without any, problem. But what happened after the IPO was that the tax authority firstly knocked on our door. And they said to us, we have to look through every single document of the company, because they could see that we just listed the company and I got paid a fortune. So of course they say we want to check to see if there's something to get. Of course, you as the tax authority has to run towards the people who actually has the money. That makes sense. That's a good business model. And I said, of course you can come in. We just had the two due diligence made. Once when the equity took over my entity of Pandora, and secondly before we listed on the IPO. It's huge exercises where we do a full IPO, we do a full due diligence, and everybody had no comments to my company at all. Everything was fine. So I was not afraid when they came from the tax authority to say, open my books, come and have a look. I have no problem. But the problem was not the tax that they were looking for. The problem was, and that is actually what made my story so crazy, was that they invented a test case on me, where they said I have to be taxed from things that were not stated in the tax regulation. That means that they wanted to see, what they said basically is they said that all the money that I spent in my company to promote Pandora and everything else around my business was not a company cost. It was a private expense, because my name was so deeply connected to Pandora that actually when I promoted Pandora around the world, it was my name that was promoted and my person that was promoted. And that means of course completely insane. But that was the argument for doing that. So instead of me being able to tax deduct all my marketing costs for the last many years, they put it into me as a personal income. Meaning I need to be taxed from that money, and I couldn't deduct the VAT. And I said to them, are you fucking out of your mind? What are you talking about? Because that amount was insane, And I said, I'm not going to play along with that ball. You can pick them up in court, these money, if you believe you can win it. And then they did it, an ambush on me, basically, where they didn't tell us. And then suddenly they just came running from behind the 19th of July, 2012, and they possessed everything I had, took all my money, I had zero. And then they say to me, now you can fight us instead of us fighting you. So I had to open up the tax cases in 2012 without a single dime on my account. And that is very tough, because it's very expensive to run. It was the two biggest private tax cases of my country ever. And of course, when that came out, since I'm a very public figure in Denmark, I'm one of the most famous businessmen of my country. Of course, when I was taking down, the nice guys from the tax authority also leaked it to the press. Just to make sure that everything was out in public. So I got 17 front pages in a row calling me the biggest tax criminal ever in the country, even though, just to make it very short so people understand the story, 7 years later in Supreme Court I was free spoken for everything, because there was nothing in it at all. But that doesn't matter, the damage is done, And we lost everything we had, They made a fire sale of our houses, our boats, our cars, our sports teams, everything was a fire sale, So I lost 75% of my net worth in that time, because they made a fire sale on everything. And in Denmark, the regulation at that time was that you only get back what they sold it for, not the actual worth of the time when they took it from you. So I looked like a fucking idiot when I won in Supreme Court, and they sent me a ridiculous amount of money back and say sorry, but what the hell are you talking about? I said, what about my house? It was worth 5.5 million. What about my boat? It was 2. Yeah, but we sold it for 1.6. We sold it for this. So that was all we got in at that time. And you go crazy if you think about these things as a normal person. But what also happened was that the two guys, the four guys that did it, the two guys, they also got, of course, thrown out. One of them, I think, had to go to jail as well for the treatment of us during the time as well. So not just the thing that they did was wrong, but also how they treated us. They couldn't do it because the regulations was not done like this. But Jordan, that doesn't help you because it happens to you. You know what I mean? So you can stand there and cry in the corner, but what the fuck can you do? You have to get up and you have to fight. So what I did is I said, okay, what is the situation, you know? We have absolutely no money, we have nothing, and we are facing court cases what will cost us millions. Just to make it short also, to get the free spoken costed us in court cases and lawyers 7.6 million to get to the point where we win our cases. But what they did very cleverly was they took all our assets away from us. And that was, of course, very, very clever. So, come on, let's fight, they say. But what can I fight with? I cannot even pay my lawyers, they said. You know, you took everything I own. But what I did then is I said, okay, fuck off. I'm going to fucking make a lot of money now, and I'm going to put them to the court. And I was like, what I promised my family, I am a maniac. I'm crazy. I'm working like crazy, and I never give up. And they didn't know who they were taking. They took the wrong guy, you know. That's why we have the Pandora business as well, because I don't stop by the first red light. I continue. And then I started creating new businesses only with the purpose of creating fast liquidity, you understand? Fast liquidity, because I needed money to pay for my court cases, to be free spoken, and I needed money to pay for my families, and I needed money to survive. And I'm very good at making businesses. So I created in that period, in these 7 years, 2-3 different businesses that I could sell shares from, that I could make work and create cash, so we still could continue to live a reasonable life. But I could also, most importantly, pay for my lawyers. And that ran me to the end of it, so I won my cases. But what Pandora very cleverly did, the private equity, who has to give me the rest payment, they knew when they had to pay me in 2015 that I was fucked. They knew that I was running two of the biggest court cases in Denmark that was extremely expensive, and I was fighting with the tax authorities 24/7. So they sent a very clever letter in 2015 when they had to pay me the last 270 million. Jesper, we are not really happy with the things that we bought from you at that time. We can't really tell you why, but we will not pay you. Fuck you, they said. And I was standing there now, because they used the situation, of course, of my problems, to say, we don't pay you. So they put more gasoline into the fire, you understand? And after I then finished my last Supreme Court case with the taxes and I won it, I turned around publicly and said, I'm coming after you now to Pandora. And then I opened up an arbitration case with Pandora to get my money, the rightful payment, but I couldn't prove it. I couldn't prove that they cheated me. They didn't want to show me any documents. They're really good, these guys, you know? And they were very skilled lawyers, and we were talking about 400, 500 million euro at that time that they need to pay me back. But I couldn't prove it, and at the end I lost in court in 2021. I lost in the arbitration, and arbitration is final. I couldn't do anything about it. So sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but I gave everything I could. But never forget, there is somebody who's always watching out for you. The reason why I lost the first case was because I couldn't prove that they cheated. Just said like this. We can see that it looks very strange that they didn't have to pay you. But since, Jesper, you have absolutely no documentation and Pandora won't show us anything, we can't make a verdict, they said. So it was like just released and I couldn't get it. But then 1.5 years later, I get a knock on my door from the former CEO of Pandora. And he had the documents. So he asked me, Jesper, are you interested in taking a talk with me? Because I can prove it. We sat down, we negotiated for 6 months because, of course, he was scared as hell of what's going to happen to him. We negotiated, we found a way to secure him so he and his family could feel safe about this, because now we're talking about $1.3 billion with all the interest and all the damage that has been done to this case on the way. And everybody what I did then when I got the documents from him, I got 3,000 documents on 2 USB sticks, the right reporting for the whole period where they said there was no money made. I got the bonus agreements, I got the accountings, I got the internal reports, I got everything. And now I could prove it, Jordan, you see. Now I had it.
Wow.
So of course I said to Pandora very clearly, guys, you want to take a talk with me? I sent them just a few documents, you know. should we take a talk? Because now I know what you did, and I know how you cheated. No reply. And then I knew, fuck, I nailed it. Because if they could have replied and said they are fake or they're wrong or something, they would of course have done it right away. So I said, okay, back in the boat, the resilient founder is back in the boat, back in the game. I gather my team of lawyers again. Now I cash enough, so it's not a problem. I go back into the game, and then I made my lawyers send a letter to them. Please explain to us why we're sitting with these results. Because this was not what you showed us in the former arbitration. No reply. And normally lawyers always replies lawyers.
Of course they do, yeah.
But they didn't. And we knew they're fucked. Next step, go to the press. I'm a very public figure in Denmark. 75% they hate me because they are fans of another football team than mine. 25% they think I'm the most crazy guy the country ever saw. And they of course applaud me and say he's a crazy guy, we trust him, we follow him. But the media then starts to write, and in the last 1.5 years, 75 newspaper articles in Denmark has been written about this case. Because Pandora cannot explain why there now are two different results in the same company, with a difference of 250 million. Because they can't explain to us what are the difference, because it's a fucking fraud, Yeah. And they manipulated the accountants beforehand, and now we can prove that they did it. So first, ask them. Secondly, make your lawyer send a letter. Thirdly, go to the press. I could do that because I am who I am. Fourthly, court, So now, of course, we go to the court. The court will be from the first court will be from the 8th to the 11th of June this year, where we'll go into the court, and Pandora still can't reply to anything. But this is what I love, they took the wrong guy. And I don't give a flying F now. I'm going to nail them down, these mother cheaters, I'm going to take them down, because you cannot run around, do that to the founder of the company just because he got smashed by the tax authority. What kind of people are you guys? I tell them, This is not how to do it. But of course, they have their reasons. They want to save the money, he's down, he's gone, and that is what I come back to, that business is so brutal. Business is war. So you have to be ready to fight from day one about everything. The one thing is to build Pandora. That was not difficult, I could do that again. But to fight these cheaters, the authorities and the tax authorities, to beat them, that was a hell of a journey, I really had to use my entrepreneurial brain to the utmost. I've trained myself to be one of the most skilled lawyers ever, because I had to learn that, how to win these cases, So now, of course, I run a huge team of lawyers running these cases. 1.3 billion, it's a lot of money. You can put a good team, You need to have really good lawyers around. So I have a team of 5 super skilled lawyers run by myself, of course. Because now my business is not to run a Pandora or to do a sports team or to win my tax cases. Now I only have one purpose. That is to win this case with Pandora. And they're trying everything. They're trying to freeze my accounts. They're blocking my social medias. It's so dirty, because this is so dangerous for everybody around us all. We know that. But I never shake. I go straight for the goal. And they can do all their legal tricks. I know them. They trained a monster. And I know exactly what I have to do on every step of the way to get in front of these judges again. Everybody told me, you can't get in front of the judges again. I can. Don't tell me what I can and what I cannot do. I can everything that I want. And that's, of course, what made me unique to many other people, is that one thing is to build Pandora and to build a top 100 global brand. That is already extreme. But going through to fight your own country through the 2 biggest tax cases, being taken down by them, and finally end up winning against them. Then just to find out that the company that you created from the people who bought from you, that they cheated you. And now I also found out about that. But of course, I have to say, and I do that every night, I thank the whistleblowers. Because it's 5 guys now, the whistleblowers that came out and told the truth, Because we need to understand, everybody around the world, that we cannot just put the head away, If we see things that are wrong, if we see people cheating, you cannot just say, I'm happy it's not me. We have to stand up for this and make this place into a better world.
because we cannot just accept that people are walking around cheating. And thank God, these former management of Pandora, they had that moral and said, this is not right, I can't live with this, that I know that they cheated Jesper. And three of the guys kept all the documents, They had all the proofs that needs to be done. That was, of course, my luck, But we need to do better, I always say. We need to do better than this. And that is the reason why I basically now go out global, because in my own country, they all know me, They know who I am. But in the whole world, they do not know me yet. But now I will go out, not because I want to tell everybody, see how good I was, I did Pandora, blah, 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 blah. That's not interesting about my story. My story is interesting because when I did it, after I did it, they killed me. But I stood up again and I never gave up. And that is the story that I want to bring out to the world, that you can never give up. I would teach everybody around the world with these struggles. Like you said, your father had it. I have thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of people who's getting screwed up. But I had the mindset trained how to get through that and how to win these cases, because I won extreme cases. I understand why it's difficult for people. They give up, they can't do it, they get drained. But I want to motivate people to fight when they're right. Till the end.
I completely agree with you. Jesper, the funniest thing is, I did law at university, and throughout my business since '98 up till now, and the businesses that I run all over the world, you have been in. I mean, as any entrepreneur will tell you, there's a lot of legal cases, loads of contracts going wrong. You have to keep on fighting, and there's certain things that I just decided to leave it. There's certain things that we could have fought till the end. I decided to leave it. The reason why, personally, was because it distracted me. I mean, I've got about 20 businesses. It distracted me from my other companies. I just took off my energies, and I just felt like lawyers were just very happy to waste my time, because I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer by trade too, so I understood when it was just a lot of pay me for paperwork and pay me for hours and just wasting my time. And there are other cases like what you're mentioning now, that you have it in your gut instinct that you were wronged in such a way that you're going to win, where everybody's not believing in you. If you just stay on course, you're going to win. And I won't be surprised if they call you before June and try to settle or something like that, because, at some point, it's not going to be good PR for them, so at some point they might want to settle. But for you now, I always think about the goal after the goal. Say, for example, they call you before June and offer you, say, look, half a billion, or 270 million, or offer you what you're asking for, or you take it to court and you end up winning that case, which is something that you have in your vision board. You end up winning that case. What's the goal after the goal? Because sometimes, people put us through this negativity, and it's through this pain, and you go through this trauma of going through this thing, and then you end up winning it. And I've had cases like that when I end up winning it, and then you sit down, you're happy, but you're like, damn, hey, it's just, it was too much. Because it's not like sports. You see, sports is different. If you win a match, whether your boxer or your football match, you're happy, you're sad, etc. But this is real life. Sports is entertainment. This is real life. This is, you took your house, you took you this, you did, and then you're like, you've been vindicated, you've won the case, you've won the money. What's the goal after the goal? Do you think that far? Because I feel like it's so important, because psychologically, it can lead to depression if you've not thought that far, because you're thinking of winning, and then you actually win, and you sit down, you're like, some people are broken down. It's like the first time you get something crazy, like winning the lottery, like you win $500 million or $1 billion, and you're like, look at this. Then what happens next?
Yeah, that's very, very, very good observation. And I can clearly hear that you have tried similar situations in your journey as well. So, you have been through this, because normally for people, it is not something that they would, look into and think about. But it's a good point, because since I won, my tax cases, and you're right, winning is a wrong word, because very often after I won my tax cases back in 18 and 19 in Denmark, people came to me and said, congratulations. Said, you don't have to congratulate me, I said, because I just won the right to keep my own money. And that costed me 75% of my net worth. So even though I was winning, I was still losing. So I didn't call the tax authority to open up the cases on me. It was something they invented. I didn't either ask Pandora and the equity that bought me to cheat on me and not give me the money. It was something they choose to do. So it's always actions, put against you that you have to fight for and make real. And of course, the victory is very, very important in that matter. And of course, you're right that they could call us. They could call me and they could go in for a settlement. But I think it's very important to say that I'm a monster. I'm crazy. I admit it. So what I did to Pandora last year, I'm going to tell you how I really put them to their knees last year, very brutally, because I am also playing as dirty as they are playing. So what I promised Pandora last year, when we opened up 2025, and I said, okay, you will not explain to me why we had these different numbers, I understand that, but I will kill your stock price this year completely. I said, if you don't do it, because I know how to do these things, because the only man who can destroy a company is the man who built it. Never forget that. So what I said to them is, I will kill. So what I got is I got access to every single retail shareholder of Pandora, 22,000. I got their mail addresses. And I started last year in February writing letters to each one of them as a former founder of the company, telling them what is going on in the court cases, sending them the newspaper articles. And I kept doing that every month all year last year. And you know what, shareholders, they don't like this. They don't want to hear about we're moving forward, we open up new markets. They don't want to hear about a court case of 1.3 billion. That is a liability. And what I know that they don't like the shareholders at all. That's why BlackRock drops 30% of their shares. That's why they don't like to hear about these problems. They don't want that. So at the end, it meant that the stock price of Pandora last year dropped 70%. And I can thank myself for that, meaning that they lost more than 10 billion stock value because I kept poking the shareholders of the company, and they let the shares go, as we could see. So every time I send the letter every month, my friends ask me very often, yes, but can you not tell us when you're going to do it? Because every time I put that letter out to the shareholders, the share price dropped 4 or 5%, And they just got tired of it at the end. And I said to them, guys, as long as you don't sit down and explain that to your founder, why he is having two different accountings from the same company, I'm going to continue to poke on you. I'm going to continue to kill you until. So last year the CEO resigned. Last year the chairman resigned because they can't explain it. They can't do it. And none other companies in the sector. We have 4 big companies in our sector in jewelry around the world. They didn't drop a cent in their share price. They stayed stable. But of course, Pandora went out and they explained to the medias in Denmark, it's the geopolitical situation, it's Trump's tariffs, it's the silver prices. And I just kept bouncing back because I have the most follow-up link profile in Denmark. 1 million Danish people read on my LinkedIn profile. That's a lot of a country of 5 million people. They read on my LinkedIn profile. So I just wrote back, so it's not the same for Charlie Fogg. It's not the same for Signet. It's the same for all the other companies in the sector. And they're not dropping, guys. So that's not working. That's not an explanation. They also have Trump as a president, if that's a problem. They also have the geopolitical situation that the rest of us have. So stop doing all these excuses, but they couldn't explain it. So, of course, now we're getting into the new phase of the new year here. And I am, of course, willing to go for a settlement anytime because Pandora is my baby. I don't want to destroy them. But they force me to do it. They leave me with no choice. So, of course, I keep doing it because I'm really angry now. Because you really cheated me, you guys, And that's not fair, how you did it. And at least you can come and try to explain it to me. But always remember, when people do not want to show you documents, when they say something is confidential, they're lying. They're lying.
True. And
that's what I learned over the years. That is what when they say no, it's confidential, we can't show it. You can't show me why you cheated me. I tell them. That's a very good story, I said. But it's just to make a meeting with me. You can sit in front of me and explain to me what you did, and then I can see if I accept it or not. But they don't want to talk to me. They don't want to do anything. They're trying to hide it. They're trying to complicate the legal processes. They're trying to, we have to discuss formalities. We have to do this. And luckily, I know how all this works. So that's all fine. You can do it again and again and again. No problem for me. Because I know this. I won the 2 biggest tax cases of my country. So you're playing with the wrong guy here when it comes to the legal cases. I know how to do this. And of course, that is the whole, how dangerous it is. And then, of course, I came up with this idea. And that's because now I have a whole army of clippers ready to start very soon. You just found me in the test phase. Because we're going to go global now with this new concept that I invented called the resilient founder. Because I have a story like nobody else in the world has. And I will go out and now put this to the whole world to inspire them to fight. But at the same time, Pandora, of course, will hate me for that because I'll get billions of views around the world on all the social media platforms, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, because I have a whole army of young guys sitting ready to post this everywhere around the world. We created 550 clips of me saying different things. And we created hundreds of different situations. So you're all gonna see me in your feeds all year. You're gonna get as tired as me as you are Donald Trump. Because I'm gonna be in your feeds all the time with all my clippers and creators from all around the world. And I never, in Denmark, I don't have to do anything because they all know me. But now I create a community called the Resilient Founder that is for free, of course, because I'm not here to do it for the money, I do it for free. And I want everybody to join me, but that's of course also to tell a story to Pandora and say, I have 5 million followers or 10 million or 15 million followers around the world. And they are also ready to fight against you because they do not accept that you are running around cheating. Because most of the court cases, you had that too, Jonah, problem, is you actually don't even want to run them because it's a waste of time, even though you're right. And that is what bad people are using against you, especially if they're big and they're rich. They will try to drain you slowly, And I will look forward to my victory. I will look forward to my victory because I will never lose. Because I will never give up. I will never.
I love that. I love that. That's definitely the right attitude. And I love the concept of the resilient founder. Just wanted to go back to what I was saying because it's very important in terms of mindset. What do you do? I want you to visualize yourself that you've won, right? Because as you said, you'll never lose. You have won. Because I think mindset is so important. What I've learned in the years of running businesses is that you can actually make magic happen or miracles happen with your mindset, and you can change situations, especially when you have faith. Myself, I'm a good believer. If you pray, you leave everything to God, and you put your action in, you don't have to worry. You've won already. You literally have won already. But what happens is the devil can try and trick you. And, sometimes you might have a low day and your mind can say, start questioning yourself. But when you speak with resilience, you are literally casting a spell in itself. And if you say you've won, there is nothing that can happen that will get in the way of winning. So I'm like over that already. I can see you winning already. So the question is, what happens then when you win? Because that's so important for your mind state. In the music industry, in one of the companies I run, the Urban Music Awards, we had a lot of artists that started out, from Ed Sheeran to Amy Winehouse, etc. And I remember a young Amy Winehouse, and she went to a school called Brits in Croydon. And she really wanted to get into the music industry. And I remember and she actually won an award at one of our awards, the Urban Music Awards. She wanted to get into the industry and make it. And when she became a millionaire and successful, she detested the industry because she never knew what will happen after she became famous. She never knew what will happen after she made it. She never knew what will happen after she won. And that's the thing that a lot of people, it happens in all careers. It happens to, doctors, lawyers, CEOs. What happens is if they don't know what's going to happen after they win, especially when you put so much of your energy into something, what happens is the burnout. You hear these stories, that people, win a lot, and then afterwards they just get depressed. Something happens, or they lose it all if they don't have that plan afterwards. So part of winning is knowing what happens after you win. And I think you've started it already, and talking about a resilient entrepreneur, that your resilient founder. but what do you think it's going to happen? Just think about it as day 2. You've won, and you have everything in order. What you wanted, exactly what you wanted, you got from Pandora. What are you doing now?
Yeah. First, that's a really good issue to like, because you have to be prepared for that. I agree. You know, I also won big trophies in sport, even though it's different. It's still a little bit the same mentality. But first, I want to go back to you when you talk about having your faith. It is a very important thing, and I don't care whether it's any kind of religion, whether it's Islam or it's Christian, but we have to believe in a higher purpose on everything. And I will share a little story with you that is not long, that actually means really a lot to me and can teach a lot of all of you on having your faith, because it's really important. You know, we come from a country in Denmark where we don't have a lot of faith. You know, we are not very religious or anything, and I think that's a very big mistake as I go through my life, because I know He's holding my hand all the way. Because it's about the karma, and it's about Him taking care of you. So back in 2023, when I have lost my case 2 years after, my first grandchild was born. My daughter is 26 years old now, but 24 at that time. I got my first grandchild, and I was at a jewelry show doing my things, running my businesses, and I was a little bit, you know, I got sad that night because I should have been there, you know. I'm the founder of Pandora. I'm a very wealthy man, you know, but I still had to work, you know. And I sat there and I was saying to my Creator, you know, I don't understand why I have to sit here when I actually should have been home in the hospital with my daughter to see my first grandchild come to life. And I looked up. I cried, which is okay for a man sometimes to ask for help. In order to get there, you have to get so low that you, as an alpha male like I am, 110%, you have to come to the point where you need to ask for help, because He's not going to help you until you're ready to take it. So I asked Him, explain to me why I have to sit here. If I did something wrong, it's okay. You can tell me what it is that I did wrong on my journey, because I never tried to cheat anybody. I'm one of the most generous guys who could ever live on this planet. I'm always in good mood. I create energy. People get energy from being with me, and they get better themselves. That's what all my friends, all my associates, everybody away from me. We need Jesper, they say, just for half an hour to get back with the energy and the fuel and the batteries and everything that goes around. So I asked him, either you help me or you tell me why so I can move on when I lost it. And who do you think called the next day?
The founder of Pandora?
The CEO.
Wow.
He called me.
Wow.
And he said,
that's a miracle.
It is a fucking miracle. And since that day, he took me by the hand and he showed me all the people I needed to talk to. And I started to look every time in my social medias, they're trying to tell me something, you know, and I just follow it and let it go. I had people contacting me. I didn't even know that I needed them. The lawyer comes by themselves. I needed just that lawyer. He comes into my life, you know. So from here on, where I am right now, I don't even worry about anything. And Jordan, I do not worry about afterwards, because He's holding my hand. You understand? He decided to put me into the Resilient Founder, because what would my story be worth if it was not that I could go out and change the life of thousands and millions of people now, give them hope, give them energy and believe, because my situation has been hopeless. But I also have a blue mark and blue chip about business that I created, Pandora. So that means I have a voice. You can listen to me, you guys, because I did it at the highest level. It's not like I made a little company somewhere. I did it. It doesn't get bigger than this, you know. It doesn't get bigger than Pandora. It's last level of business. And of course, this is what I want to do in the future with my Resilient Founder concept. I never care about the money. Everybody said that, but I truly never did, because then I wouldn't have done all the things I did. But I want to show the world with my Resilient Founder concept that there is another way. And what I'm trying to attract also with my whole Clipper army and creator army, you know, We work in the school platform, and we have the creators, and I work with them every day now. My creators and clippers, and we have room for 25,000 of them in our system, and we have now I think 15,000 that will go out and start to clip and send all these videos. What I want to teach them, and it's mostly young men, also some young girls, but mostly young men. But they're between 15 and 40 years old. And now I get a little bit religious again, but these men that I'm going to take into my resilient founder concept now and teach the right values on how to fight and how to treat and stop walking around cheating each other and frauding each other. It's not the right way. Guys that I'm now taking under my arms now, under my wings as I move forward with the resilient founder concepts. They are between 15 and 40 years old. And you know what? That is the guys and the boys and the girls that's going to run this world in the future. So it's now we have to take them and talk to them, and we have to stop this mentality of walking around cheating each other, and it's all about the money, We have to stop teaching them these things. We have to teach them that they have to do things right, because I always did things right. I lived an extremely privileged life, visited 113 countries, had everything I could ever dream of in my life. I had tried everything you can imagine. I have nothing left on my bucket list whatsoever. But I only got all these things because I always did the things right. I never cheated. I never did things wrong towards anybody in my business life or anything. And that means that the creator, he holds my hand. But if you do things wrong and you cheat and you do all the things, he will let you walk alone. And then you will be living a miserable life in the long run. Because the guy who cheated me from the equity, he's the number one private equity guy in Denmark. You know what happened to him in 2019? He lost his wife of cancer. And I know why. That's not because it was a bad luck or anything. It was because he fucking did nothing else in this world but walking around cheating and betraying people every single day he went to work. And he got the punishment out of that, And that is always what I say. Nothing, we have been through crazy things in our lives, in my family, but we are all healthy. And we are standing together as a family like never before. And that is the most valuable thing you can take with you. We have such a strong and solid family. Everybody around. I have 5 kids, already 2 grandchildren. My mom and dad still live, and they're in the business. My sister and my brother-in-law, and we're all healthy, We are standing together, no fights, no family feuds, nothing. It's one unit. We're one person, and that is true love. And that's only because we always do things right. We never cheat, we never lie, and we always try to help people all around the world. And that is a resilient founder concept that the world has never seen before. We've seen the guy come and see how you get your Rolex. You think I had Rolexes. You think I had a Lamborghini. You think I had a Lamborghini? Yeah. You think, come on, guys.
I love that. I love everything you're saying. I love it because I just remember a story years ago. One of my first court cases was when this company was trying to take a property that was worth millions that I had bought, and they for some reason they had access, and they were going to take it. Because I defaulted. I was very young. I was in my 20s then. And they wanted millions for it. There was no way I could do it. They wanted to take the property from me. And I remember I sat in court waiting to get in. And my heart was beating and I was nervous. And I knew every document, every evidence they had, 100%, there was no way out. They would have taken this property. So I remembered going to the toilet and praying to God and saying, God, this is my prayer. I said, God, I want you to do a miracle where you confuse the lawyer so I get back this property, so they're not able to take this property. So I went back. And then what happened was when we went in, the lawyer of the company trying to take this property had showed up very late. And when he showed up, while we sat down, when they sworn us in, while we sat down, all the documents he had fell down the floor. So he's now looking for the documents to present his case, and he couldn't find the document. This is real happening. He's flustered. He doesn't know what to do. And then he's so flustered, doesn't know what to do. And then the judge looks at me and gives me an eye like, what's going on? And I'm just like this. So this happened for 20 minutes, and the judge just said, adjourned case, closed case to him. You should have been prepared, and that was it. That case got dismissed, and that was one of the first miracles I saw God work in a massive way. So when you speak about the miracles, I completely get it. I completely get it. I also like what you're talking about, the Resilient Founder, because I have a school, Uni Republic, for entrepreneurs. And I think it's so important to give back to entrepreneurs. In 2026, if you were to launch a jewelry brand, what would you do differently? And would you go into a jewelry brand, and what would you do differently?
I think the most important thing is, of course, to understand now the scenario that we're living in today compared to where I lived in the old days. And even though I'm not the youngest guy anymore, I'm still very much, also because I have so many kids, following much along how things are, going on and working in the world. So there's no doubt that what the world could look into and what the world needs is a jewelry brand created online, not over brick and mortar, but that is, of course, the old traditional way. And even though I know the jewelry is, not the easiest, it's actually the most difficult product to sell online that there is, but I still think that if I would do it today, I would create a strong army of very, very influential people around the world, women with huge follower groups, and then I would create some beautiful jewelry towards them, and I would make all these women, promote this brand globally, because we can nowadays reach a huge audience 100 times, maybe 1,000 times faster than when I was building up Pandora in the old days. And there's no doubt that when I see in the clothing industry, brands like Fashion and all these, brands that are doing really, really well, it is very, very, interesting to see what the online world and what the social media can do. I think it's extremely important. But we also know that the future of the social media is that everything will be much more individualized, that we will own our own data. We will have a lot of in the Web 3.0, that's what we're looking into. So, of course, it's very, very interesting to see that. But I would definitely, you can never create a new Pandora, I always say. That is my say, but create something similar to that, because there is nothing like Pandora really out there in the world. Now, Swarovski tried at a certain time, they didn't succeed. We have the big Americans in signet jewelry, but that's more like a retail brand. We have Chow Li Fok in China, that is the big brand. But a real brand like Pandora in the jewelry industry in that segment doesn't really exist. And of course, that is an opening for any young entrepreneur out in the world. And anyone who has an idea, they're welcome to write me, And anybody who is interested in following the Resilient Founder, go in and then sign up for me. It's for free. The first thing you get in the Resilient Founder concept, Bjorn, for free, is my book that I wrote. So you can get, a lot about the mindset, how I do everything, how I got through the different cases, and how I did it in a more, you can say, a structured way. But that you will get for free, and then in the future you will be able to follow. And of course, also we want it to be a lot like a community where they can come with their own personal problems that we can give our takes on, So that is of course that. But also if somebody has an idea about a jewelry brand or a piece of jewelry, I would love to see it, because I have tried a lot and seen a lot in jewelry. So I still think that there could be maybe one or two big brands for the market in the future for a young, really, really good entrepreneur that would do it.
Amazing. Well, Jesper, it's been lovely having you on a Debated live show. Very inspiring story. And once again, people that want to follow you, is it at the Resilient Founder?
Until like 2 months ago, John, I was only on LinkedIn because I'm a dinosaur, yeah. But now I have all the social medias, and we are growing them. And I promise you guys, you'll get so tired of seeing me this year,
I love it. Jesper, I'm sure we'll be talking more. I look forward to speak to you about more business ventures and more things that we can do together. Always. But it's been lovely having you. And I already know you've won. By God's grace, you've already won that case. I could see you winning. And I'm sure we will be celebrating that win very, very soon. Yeah?
It will be a victory. I hope. Thank you, Jordan.
No worries.
All right. Let's sign.
Not again.
Escom, seriously?
I told you guys to get Solar Republic.
Yeah, we should have gone with Solar Republic.
What?
And there you have it. That was the Debated Live show with Jordan Kensington and Jesper Nielsen. Make sure you subscribe, like, share, and join the channel.